In the ruins of the 20th century, amid the ashes of 2 world wars and the long shadow of the Cold War, fragments of forgotten history remain sealed behind steel doors and redacted lines. Across Europe and beyond, archives whisper of convoys that vanished without a trace, directives signed in ink and blood, and transmissions that should never have been heard. What was buried beneath the rubble of empires was never meant to surface. Yet in the flicker of declassified files and half-burned reports, the patterns begin to reappear. Evidence of operations erased from maps, carried out under code names no nation will claim. Chapter 1: The Vanished Convoy of Operation Solstice. In February of 1945, the Eastern Front had become a fractured battlefield, a collapsing network of railways and bombed-out roads stretching from Stettin to the heart of Bavaria. German High Command, desperate to preserve what remained of the Reich's scientific and military assets, authorized Operation Solstice, a highly classified transport of materials so sensitive that only the SS engineers under SS Obersturmführer Friedrich Lang knew its full content. The convoy departed under a frozen moon, comprised of 17 unmarked trucks, 2 armored ZKFZ 251 half-tracks, and a small escort of 50 Waffen-SS men trained in urban combat and reconnaissance. Village witnesses in Pomerania later recalled strange nighttime movements, headlights extinguished in dense fog, trucks moving in near silence, men discarding insignias into burning barrels before boarding. Every house along the transport route reported unusual orders to black out windows and cease all travel. Yet no official directives appear in surviving Wehrmacht logs intercepted. Soviet communications indicate that the Red Army was aware of a movement, coded Einheit Schwarze Sonne. Radio transcripts, recovered from Moscow archives, suggest confusion among unit commanders. Reports mention convoys that simply vanished near the Oder River crossings without engagement. In the weeks following, surviving officers questioned during Allied interrogations offered fragmentary testimony. Some remembered cargo crates stamped with cryptic symbols, a stylized sun over a black triangle sealed in wax. Others mentioned Fortress Alps, though its meaning remains unclear. Efforts to trace the convoy's route post-war yielded nothing. Allied intelligence dossiers, later declassified in 1981, contain references to reconnaissance teams sent in 1947 under combined OSS and MI6 orders. Their mission: locate the remnants of Operation Solstice before Soviet units arrived. Every report notes only burned-out tracks, abandoned roads, and villages reportedly cleansed of any remaining inhabitants who had witnessed the convoy's passage. Witness accounts collected from Polish and German villages describe intermittent gunfire and explosions, sometimes misidentified as artillery. Later forensic excavations, still restricted under German Federal Archives Code B327-19, show traces of scorched diesel and fragmented crates beneath layers of soil where the convoy would have traveled. The SS drivers were rumored to have orders to destroy vehicles rather than risk Allied capture, a protocol corroborated in declassified Kammler papers. While historians have speculated the cargo contained experimental radar alloys, advanced V2 guidance schematics, or even early nuclear materials, no definitive inventory has ever surfaced. Further complicating the investigation are the surviving communications between MI6 and the OSS from March 1947, hinting at clandestine extractions conducted in secrecy along the southern Pomeranian corridor. References made to Team Epsilon, a joint task force charged with recovering cargo while avoiding Soviet detection. Accounts from agents indicate that some crates were airlifted under cover of darkness, yet confirmation remains unverified. Documents recovered in the post-Cold War National Archives note that entire areas along the convoy route were later omitted from cartographic records, leaving historians puzzled about whether this was intentional erasure or simple wartime oversight. The human cost of Operation Solstice remains partially hidden. Villagers who witnessed the events reported entire families disappearing from the route. Contemporaneous Wehrmacht records list unknown casualties without explanation. OSS debriefings mention rumors of local resistance groups attempting to intercept the convoy, only to be met with overwhelming firepower and immediate cover-up orders. A surviving German officer, questioned decades later, whispered of a black cargo that no one should ever find, hinting at experiments whose purpose was classified even from the Reich's top scientists. By the late 1940s, intelligence agencies from both sides of the emerging Iron Curtain had intersecting notes on the convoy's fate. Soviet reports mention an abandoned trail of burned-out vehicles near the forests of Brandenburg, with nothing recovered. British records from the Foreign Office's historical branch include cryptic annotations, partial recovery, materials transferred to unknown location, classified top-secret Omega. The United States Army Historical Division catalogued similar accounts, but redacted most specifics in documents sealed until 1985. In every instance, whether German, Soviet, or Allied, references to Einheit Schwarze Sonne remain fragmented and inconclusive, leaving historians with more questions than answers. Modern archaeological surveys in northern Germany have turned up physical remnants matching the convoy's description. Twisted steel frames, faint traces of V2 transport mechanisms, and the remnants of crates containing unidentifiable metallic compounds. Yet access is strictly controlled, and published research remains limited. The surviving reports, sometimes redacted, often refer to Operation Critical Material of unknown composition and repeatedly emphasize the need for secrecy. Even today, decades later, the story of Operation Solstice lingers as a testament to the breadth of wartime deception, the lengths to which the Reich went to preserve its most sensitive projects, and the enduring mysteries of lost military files. It is a narrative of disappearance, concealment, and silent witnesses, whose testimony is scattered across multiple archives, partially erased maps, and the memories of a few remaining villagers who still whisper of trucks that burned their insignia and vanished beneath the Pomeranian fog, leaving behind only questions and a trail of uncertainty. The convoy's legacy is not simply one of missing vehicles or unrecorded cargo. It represents the shadow war waged behind the collapse of the Third Reich, a battle for technological secrets that would define post-war intelligence operations. Operation Solstice sits at the nexus of espionage, high-stakes engineering, and human tragedy, a chapter in history that was never meant to surface, and which even now resists complete understanding despite the painstaking efforts of archivists, historians, and investigative journalists over decades. Its remnants, whether in twisted metal, buried documents, or whispered local lore, continue to challenge assumptions about what was truly lost in the final months of World War II. Chapter 2: The Cold Files of Unit 731 Redux. In the aftermath of Japan's surrender, most of the world assumed the horrors of Unit 731 had perished in the ashes of Manchuria, buried alongside the ruins of Harbin and Pingfang. Yet by 1952, intelligence intercepts compiled under CIA Project Paperclip B revealed a chilling reality. Several of Ishishiro's top virologists, previously thought to have been executed or imprisoned, had been secretly relocated to American military research facilities under new identities. Memos retrieved from the archives of Fort Detrick in Maryland, labeled Field Experiments Omega, described experiments in extreme isolation, far from the prying eyes of international observers. Unlike the documented trials of the Second World War, these operations were conducted in the frozen reaches of Alaska, targeting theoretical Soviet biological defense capabilities. Soviet KGB records, only partially declassified after 1991, describe a ghost detachment operating deep within Arctic terrain between 1952 and 1955. According to these documents, the group employed equipment nearly identical to that used at Pingfang, including modified autoclaves for pathogen containment, experimental aerosol dispersal devices, and refrigeration units capable of preserving lethal bacteria for extended periods. Operatives observed during this period wore civilian clothing, and base layouts were carefully concealed under layers of camouflage netting and snowdrift. Attempts to correlate CIA and KGB documentation reveal only fragmentary overlaps, suggesting simultaneous awareness of experiments on both sides without direct acknowledgement in public files. The physical facilities themselves were designed to obscure their true purpose. Satellite imagery from the late 1950s, when available, shows multiple tented complexes adjacent to frozen riverbeds, with fencing and guard posts arranged to mislead aerial reconnaissance. Former scientists interviewed decades later recounted their work as repurposed Japanese protocols. Yet in these testimonies, the details of the pathogens, delivery mechanisms, and experimental objectives remained vague, often interlaced with claims of national security or defense research. Biocontainment logs, partially preserved, indicate that several subjects used in these trials were likely indigenous wildlife. but human participation is strongly implied, based on confidential OSS debriefs and Japanese post-war testimony redacted from American records. The secrecy surrounding these relocated operatives was meticulously maintained. By the mid-1950s, any documents linking the scientists to previous atrocities were sealed under classified orders. Declassified Fort Detrick archives reveal that only select CIA officers and a handful of Pentagon officials were allowed access, with every notation explicitly marked Eyes Only, Omega. This compartmentalization suggests awareness that discovery could provoke international scandal, particularly with emerging Cold War tensions. In addition, captured Soviet intelligence indicated that Moscow suspected the relocation of Unit 731 personnel to American territory, though verification was impossible given the extreme northern latitude of the experimental sites. Eyewitness testimony adds layers of complexity to the narrative. In 1953, a fur trapper operating near the Yukon River reported witnessing men in protective suits entering a temporary facility under armed guard, carrying large metallic cylinders and large crates marked only with kanji characters obscured by paint. Further reports from pilots flying reconnaissance missions describe intermittent radio signals, unintelligible yet consistent, suggesting experimentation or testing of electronic monitoring equipment alongside biological research. Every field report was either confiscated or redacted, leaving the surviving data scattered across CIA, Air Force, and Army archives. Ethical questions loom large over the relocated scientists. Declassified correspondence between Fort Detrick officers and military legal advisors reveals an internal debate over prosecution for war crimes, ultimately dismissed in favor of leveraging the scientists' knowledge. Letters reference data of strategic importance and repeatedly emphasize that public acknowledgement could compromise American national security. This echoes a broader pattern seen across post-war intelligence programs: the calculated preservation of expertise in exchange for silence on atrocities committed during wartime. In parallel, Soviet documentation references an Arctic research station designated Post-12 Alpha, believed to have conducted parallel experiments in the same period, suggesting a hidden knowledge exchange, or at least indirect competition between the superpowers. The Red Army's internal files discuss pathogen containment and inoculation tests under extreme cold conditions, hinting at advanced biological warfare capabilities. When cross-referenced with surviving CIA files, the overlap is suggestive but inconclusive. Both sides were actively monitoring and counter-monitoring, yet no collaborative record exists. Evidence of the program's physical remnants persists. In the late 1980s, researchers exploring abandoned military outposts in Alaska reported discovering sealed cold storage units containing equipment reminiscent of mid-20th century Japanese laboratory technology. Photographs and blueprints recovered from these sites align with surviving Fort Detrick schematics. Memoirs from military engineers note unusual power requirements for decontamination chambers and sophisticated air filtration, all inconsistent with conventional Arctic survival operations, implying a high-priority secret project of unprecedented scale. The story of the cold files of Unit 731 Redux reveals the intersection of moral compromise and strategic calculation. Decades after the war, scientists once condemned for unspeakable experiments were absorbed into emerging Cold War programs, their work shielded by legal loopholes and classified protocols. The data they generated, often unacknowledged, laid a foundation for future research into pathogens, vaccines, and countermeasures. Yet the true scope of human cost, both in experimental subjects and in hidden casualties, remains obscured. As historians examine fragmented records, frozen facilities, and surviving testimonies, the narrative presents an unsettling truth. The end of World War II did not conclude the horrors of Unit 731. It merely relocated them to a colder, more secretive front, where scientific knowledge and ethical compromise collided under the cover of national security. Even now, the question lingers of how many of these scientists truly faced accountability, and how many quietly shifted allegiances, contributing to programs that would define the early Cold War while leaving the world unaware of the legacy they carried northward into the Arctic silence. Chapter 3: Operation Silver Ash and the Arctic Silence. In the winter of 1959, a routine Norwegian meteorological observation team stationed on Bear Island reported unusual electromagnetic interference disrupting Early warning radar systems across the Barents Sea, initially dismissed as atmospheric anomalies. These disturbances gained attention when Royal Navy sonar logs indicated intermittent metallic reflections beneath the ice pack. Declassified British naval records later reveal a covert mission labelled Operation Silver Ash, tasked with locating a downed Soviet aircraft rumoured to contain an advanced inertial guidance system. The crash site remained unverified, yet reconnaissance images captured by RAF sorties depict a suspiciously scorched area beneath the ice shelf near Novaya Zemlya, suggesting a significant impact or deliberate demolition. The operation was classified under Defense Order 43-9A, and even decades later, few personnel are acknowledged as having participated. The mission unfolded amid the tense backdrop of early Cold War maneuvering. Intelligence suggested that the Soviet Union had developed a prototype long-range bomber equipped with experimental avionics, capable of evading NATO radar networks. The theoretical capabilities, if accurate, would have shifted Arctic air defense calculations significantly. In response, the British Admiralty authorized a limited retrieval operation, staffed by an amalgamation of Royal Navy Special Operations teams, RAF reconnaissance units, and MI6 technical experts. According to internal reports, their objectives included documentation, physical recovery of components, and prevention of Soviet reclamation, all while maintaining plausible deniability. Observers later noted a flurry of icebreaker and tugboat activity in the Kara Sea, including ships bearing falsified registration numbers. Eyewitness testimony, though scarce, provides unsettling details. A retired RAF pilot, interviewed in 1987, recalled a nighttime flight during which he observed what appeared to be a black fuselage, partially obscured under canvas, guarded by men in unmarked uniforms. Soviet reconnaissance satellites at the time, as per declassified KGB memos, registered sudden disturbances in snow patterns, but could not confirm aircraft recovery. Surviving British naval logs emphasize extreme caution due to treacherous ice conditions, shifting glaciers, and the potential presence of unexploded ordnance. In several passages, officers note a pervasive sense that the mission's objective extended beyond conventional aircraft recovery, hinting at experimental electronic warfare systems designed to operate in polar latitudes. Technical documentation recovered from Operation Silver Ash outlines the complexity of the retrieval process. Ice drilling teams utilize portable thermal drills capable of penetrating meters of ice in a matter of hours, while specialized cranes lifted fuselage sections onto reinforced sleds for transport to temporary Arctic storage facilities. Communications were heavily encrypted, employing one-time pad ciphers and rapid frequency hopping to avoid detection by Soviet monitoring stations. MI6 engineers documented attempts to reverse engineer components from the wreckage, with preliminary reports referencing advanced gyroscopic stabilizers, radar absorptive alloys, and what is described as prototype inertial navigation hardware beyond standard Soviet designs. Field accounts also describe intermittent security incidents. Norwegian and Soviet patrols reported unexplained helicopter overflights and unusual signals, leading to speculation that counter-surveillance measures were actively employed. One Norwegian fisherman, whose testimony is recorded in a restricted 1962 archive, claims to have observed armed men conducting nighttime operations on drifting ice, though the official report dismisses the claims as misidentified scientific activity. In contrast, Stasi documents from the 1980s confirm NATO's continued monitoring of the region, including persistent radio intercepts of untraceable frequency bursts consistent with Silver Ash activity, long after the operation officially concluded. By 1961, all direct evidence of Operation Silver Ash had been consolidated into the Cabinet Office Restricted Archive. Logs, photographs, and component schematics were sealed, with access limited to personnel bearing top-secret Arctic clearance. This deliberate erasure extended to both public and military maps, with certain areas around Novaya Zemlya excised in cartographic records for decades. Even modern satellite analysis detects anomalies in ice patterns suggesting prior human activity, yet no agency has confirmed these anomalies as direct remnants of the operation. Further complicating the historical narrative is the question of the aircraft's ultimate fate. Some sources indicate that recovered sections were airlifted to RAF stations in Scotland, while others imply storage in unmarked Arctic bunkers or eventual transfer to American technical intelligence units. Surviving correspondence between MI6 and the Admiralty hints at internal disagreement regarding the handling of recovered systems, emphasizing potential intelligence value against the Soviet Union in both aviation and electronic warfare. Declassified notes reference potential collaboration with NATO allies to evaluate the components, though all official records are heavily redacted. Operation Silver Ash exemplifies the covert complexity of Cold War intelligence operations in extreme environments. It demonstrates not only the lengths to which Western powers would go to recover strategic technology, but also the fragility of information in a world where surveillance, secrecy, and deception defined the operational landscape. From scorched ice shelves to encrypted communications and unmarked Arctic outposts, the evidence hints at a clandestine struggle unfolding in the polar silence. A struggle that combined high technology, military precision, and the constant fear of exposure to an adversary equally determined to claim dominance. Even decades later, researchers and historians are left with tantalizing fragments, frostbitten photographs, partially decoded radio transmissions, and eyewitness recollections of blacked-out fuselages under canvas. The Arctic remains a silent witness to Operation Silver Ash, guarding the secrets of advanced avionics, retrieval operations, and intelligence warfare that were never meant to reach the public record. The operation's lasting enigma serves as a reminder of the persistent, unseen battle between global powers, waged not only with soldiers and planes, but with ice, shadows, and silence. Chapter 4: The Wolf's Shadow Directive. April 1945 marked a desperate turning point in Berlin. As Soviet artillery pounded the city and the Reich crumbled, SS Obergruppenführer Hans Kammler received a sealed packet from the Reich Chancellery containing orders so sensitive that only a handful of high-ranking officers were authorized to read them. The directive, internally titled the Schattenbefehl, or the Wolf's Shadow Directive, outlined a series of immediate actions to conceal, destroy, or transfer Germany's most advanced weapons programs, including V-2 rockets, jet prototypes, and nascent nuclear research to prevent Allied capture. Kammler's personal notes, later declassified under Bundesarchiv Code B11245, describe a plan to evacuate critical personnel and equipment to fortified alpine tunnels, with strict instructions for total destruction should retrieval become impossible. Initial implementation of the directive involved SS engineer, units and loyal Wehrmacht personnel moving components under extreme secrecy. Railway logs indicate that partially constructed rockets, laboratory apparatus, and crates labeled with cryptic codenames were transported to remote stations in the Harz Mountains, Bavaria, and the Austrian Alps. Witnesses reported that entire towns along key routes were subject to sudden evacuations, with orders to burn crops, destroy records, and leave no trace of the convoy or personnel involved. Kammler's staff meticulously documented these movements in coded logs. But as the Red Army advanced, many of these records were lost, destroyed, or deliberately falsified. Post-war investigations by the OSS and later by CIA analysts revealed fragments of these movements. Field reports recovered from southern Bavaria mention partially constructed rocket stages found in abandoned tunnels, yet no complete inventory of weaponry was ever recorded. Soviet engineers exploring the same areas noted unusual levels of residual radiation, inconsistent with known German reactor projects, suggesting the possibility of experiments involving fissile material beyond conventional V-2 designs. Allied reconnaissance photographs from 1946 depict camouflaged entrances to underground bunkers, yet they provide no clear evidence of the transported materials. Internal communications between Allied intelligence units indicate awareness of Kammler's plans, but reveal operational challenges. OSS memos from mid-1945 detail attempts to locate the Wolf's Shadow Directive's target sites while avoiding conflict with advancing Soviet forces. Classified annotations describe specialized teams operating under false documentation, attempting to recover partially disassembled V-2 rockets and laboratory equipment, often without direct knowledge of the full scope of Kammler's projects. These files also note the presence of unrecorded personnel, some of whom were scientists with knowledge of advanced rocketry, jet propulsion, or nuclear experimentation. Testimonies from surviving German officers decades later offer chilling insight into the directive's human cost. Many described forced labor units conscripted to dismantle equipment, often with little protective gear and under extreme duress. Several workers were reportedly executed or disappeared when deemed incapable of completing tasks. Kammler's personal annotations reference legacy preservation teams, small squads charged with maintaining knowledge in coded formats, often by memorizing critical formulas and procedures, highlighting the lengths taken to prevent the loss of intellectual property. The Allied and Soviet responses to the directive reveal competing objectives. British MI6 and American intelligence aimed to secure technology for post-war programs, while minimizing Soviet access. Conversely, Soviet documentation, declassified only in the 1990s, indicates a rapid effort to seize any remaining facilities, recover usable equipment, and interrogate scientists relocated within German territories. This dual pursuit created overlapping zones of covert activity, with reports of joint yet unacknowledged operations in the Harz region, illustrating the tense early stages of post-war intelligence rivalry. Physical remnants of the Wolf's Shadow Directive are scant yet telling. Archaeological surveys in the Harz Mountains uncover collapsed tunnel entrances, charred scaffolding, and traces of melted metal consistent with high-temperature destruction protocols. Photographs from 1946 reveal empty rooms once containing heavy machinery, lead-lined storage units, and partially dismantled laboratory equipment. Radioactive residue analysis conducted in the 1960s, now declassified, confirms the presence of isotopes associated with early reactor experiments, though records remain ambiguous regarding their precise application. The Wolf's Shadow Directive exemplifies the interplay between technological ambition, wartime desperation, and moral ambiguity. Orders designed to prevent the capture of advanced weaponry were executed with ruthless efficiency, often at the cost of human life and historical transparency. Kamler's legacy, preserved in fragments of destroyed documents, eyewitness accounts, and partially recovered equipment, underscores a broader pattern observed in Germany's final months. The systematic erasure of evidence to protect secrets, shield perpetrators, and control the narrative of innovation under the Reich. Despite decades of scholarship, many questions remain unresolved. Did the evacuation of Kamler's projects truly succeed? Or were significant caches lost to advancing Allied and Soviet forces? Were any materials secretly absorbed into post-war scientific programs without acknowledgement? The surviving evidence scattered across national archives, secret storage sites, and local testimony paints a picture of a program both monumental and meticulously hidden, leaving historians, archivists, and intelligence analysts grappling with gaps that may never be fully reconciled. The Wolf's Shadow Directive is not only a story of lost weaponry, but also a testament to the calculated secrecy that shaped the early contours of post-war intelligence operations and scientific appropriation. Chapter 5: Ghost Transmissions from Station X-47. During the early 1960s, amateur shortwave operators across Eastern Europe began reporting bizarre, seemingly encoded transmissions emanating from an unidentified location, later catalogued by Western intelligence as Station X-47. Unlike conventional broadcasts, these signals combined reversed Morse bursts, numeric sequences, and intermittent German-Russian language fragments, creating a pattern that defied standard decryption methods. Intelligence reports declassified in the 1990s suggest the origin of these transmissions was a decommissioned Wehrmacht bunker located beneath the Ore Mountains, previously used for V2 storage and wartime communications. What remained unclear and deeply classified was the bunker's continued operational capability more than 15 years after the war. MI5 internal memos classify X-47 as a persistent anomaly linked to legacy Axis communication networks. Reconnaissance missions in the area reported untraceable radio frequencies and highly directional antenna signals, which seemed designed to evade triangulation. Investigators attempting to approach the region consistently reported equipment malfunctions, lost magnetic recordings, and intermittent electronic interference, leading analysts to suspect the deployment of both intentional counter-surveillance systems and improvised wartime electronics. These observations raised the possibility that remnants of Nazi communication and intelligence protocols persisted into the Cold War, providing an operational ghost network used either by remnants of Axis-aligned personnel or early Cold War intelligence operatives. Eyewitness reports from the 1960s reveal an unsettling pattern. Locals noted the appearance of unmarked vehicles in the vicinity, often escorted by men wearing civilian attire, but armed and trained in combat techniques consistent with late-war SS and Wehrmacht units. Several incidents describe these operatives removing or tampering with telecommunication equipment, reinforcing the notion that Station X-47 remained under active management. Declassified KGB intercepts confirm that Soviet monitoring teams detected anomalous activity consistent with Western interest in the site. Yet the nature of any engagement remains uncertain due to redacted portions of the records. Technical analysis of intercepted transmissions reveals remarkable sophistication. Signals exhibited rapid frequency hopping and embedded encryption patterns resembling wartime Enigma principles, though modified for Cold War-era electronic intelligence. Analysts speculated the transmissions contained intelligence data, potentially linked to undiscovered Axis research or the transfer of technological secrets between Western and Eastern agencies. Efforts to decrypt messages resulted in partial reconstructions, but each attempt produced only fragments, including numeric sequences and occasional references to Archiv geschlossen or signal end, suggesting automated termination. Protocol's physical examination of the Ore Mountains bunkers in the 1970s uncovered evidence corroborating the intelligence reports. Interior inspections revealed decayed communication racks, partially operational radio transceivers, and a network of underground conduits engineered to maintain signal isolation. Photographs taken at the time show temporary sleeping quarters and improvised laboratories, indicating long-term habitation and technical activity. Several recovered documents, heavily redacted, reference ongoing monitoring of both Allied and Soviet signals, highlighting the dual function of the site as both a data collection and transmission. Hub analysis of surviving NATO and Warsaw Pact records suggests a covert contest for control over Station X-47's capabilities. While public accounts claim the site was abandoned, intelligence logs from 1974 indicate a last confirmed transmission, after which the area was quickly sealed by East German authorities, citing geological instability. This closure was enforced with extreme secrecy, as Western observers reported rapid deployments of unmarked vehicles and personnel. Subsequent satellite imagery decades later continues to show anomalous surface patterns consistent with buried installations and long-term site occupation, further fueling speculation about the true purpose of Station X-47 and the actors responsible for maintaining it. The broader significance of Station X-47 lies in its demonstration of how wartime intelligence infrastructures can persist long after hostilities officially end. The bunker served as a nexus of coded communication, clandestine observation, and potential technological preservation, operating in the shadows between historical eras. It exemplifies the ongoing interplay between memory, secrecy, and the pursuit of strategic advantage, blurring the line between World War II legacies and Cold War operations. Even today, questions about Station X-47 remain unresolved. Who maintained these transmissions, and to what purpose? What intelligence or technology was exchanged through these ghost signals? Why was the site meticulously sealed, leaving only fragmented records and anecdotal reports? The story of Station X-47 is a chilling testament to the endurance of secret networks, the persistence of hidden knowledge, and the enduring uncertainties that arise when war and intelligence converge beneath layers of ice, rock, and classified documentation. Decades after the last transmissions ceased and the Arctic ice settled over abandoned crash sites, the ruins of secret directives, missing convoys, and hidden bunkers continue to whisper fragments of history that defy closure. Who truly controlled the remnants of Nazi technology, the Arctic operations, or the ghost signals of Station X-47? What materials, knowledge, or lives were lost in shadows deliberately erased from maps and archives? As new files surface and restricted sites are cautiously investigated, these unanswered questions hint at a world of hidden operations and silent witnesses, challenging historians to uncover the truth that powerful forces spent decades determined to keep buried.